In the outskirts of Bakersfield, California, there was a street where residents avoided walking with their pets. Children were warned not to go near 427 Linden Avenue, the unkempt house with overgrown grass and a crooked wire fence. There lived Thomas Griggs, a 52-year-old man, a loner and former employee of an oil company, fired for aggressive behavior. He rarely spoke to anyone, and when he did, it was to complain. But what truly made him infamous was something far darker: his cruelty toward animals. It wasn't just an urban legend. Neighbors' cameras had captured footage of him pouring boiling water on stray dogs, throwing rocks, using wooden sticks to chase away cats, and yelling threats that sent chills down spines. One video, shared widely in local Facebook groups, showed him placing nails in a bowl of food left near his gate. The footage sparked outrage, but it didn't lead to jail time, just a warning and a $250 fine, which he tore up in front of the officer. People wondered where such hatred came from. Who could despise defenseless creatures with such intensity? According to a former coworker, Thomas used to say that as a child, he'd been attacked by a German shepherd, bitten on the face and left with a thin scar under his left eye, now barely visible. His mother, traumatized, had the dog put down in front of him. Since then, he wanted nothing to do with animals. But what began as trauma became obsession. Thomas seemed to take pleasure in animal suffering. His house reeked of rot, and some claimed to have seen cages hidden in the backyard containing carcass remnants. Animal control investigated, but never found enough evidence. The city seemed trapped in a cycle of helplessness, watching a monster walk free under the protection of legal loopholes. Some residents, led by a young activist named Melissa Carver, tried to start a campaign to have him removed from the city. They gathered signatures, filed complaints, reached out to local media. Nothing worked. Then a new video surfaced. A security camera caught the moment Thomas kicked a small black puppy so hard it was launched into a trash can. The pup dragged itself for a few seconds before limping away into the bushes. The video gained over 40,000 views in 24 hours. Outrage spilled from social media into the streets. Still, Thomas showed no remorse. "I don't want animals near my house. Let them fend for themselves," he said when confronted by a news crew. "The city's full of strays. They should just kill them all." That statement was the final straw. That same day, someone spray-painted his fence. "Animal killer." He was verbally assaulted at a grocery store. His house became a target for vandalism, but he didn't back down. Not yet. What no one expected was that within 2 weeks, fate would place Thomas Griggs in an extreme situation. A turning point that would change everything, or almost everything. And it would begin on a rainy night, with the rumble of an engine and a howl echoing from the middle of the road. On the night of March 14th, an unexpected storm swept over Bakersfield. Gusts of wind knocked down branches across the streets, and rainwater quickly pooled along sidewalks and roads. For most people, it was a night to stay indoors. But Thomas Griggs wasn't like most people. He was returning from a liquor store on the outskirts of town. He often went there to avoid the judgmental stares of the locals. He would drink in silence, sitting in his old 1998 Chevrolet Suburban, blasting 80s rock and chain-smoking. That night, angry over the criticism and graffiti on his house, he left without telling anyone. He had no plans of coming back anytime soon. It was just past 10 p.m. when his car skidded on a curve along Old River Road, a dark, poorly marked stretch known for accidents. A fallen branch made the vehicle swerve sharply and crash into a tree. The impact was violent. The airbag didn't deploy. Thomas was pinned between the steering wheel and the crumpled dashboard. His left leg was crushed, his shoulder dislocated. The windshield shattered. Rain poured down, and there wasn't another car in sight. His phone, lost somewhere on the soaked floor, was useless. He was completely alone, or so he thought. For nearly an hour, Thomas drifted in and out of consciousness. He began yelling for help, but the storm drowned out his voice. He could taste blood in his mouth and feel death creeping closer. And then the familiar sound. Paws in the mud. A low growl. Then a whimper. Thomas forced his eyes open. The rain blurred everything. But there, just a few feet from the car, standing in the faint glow of a lightning flash, was a black dog. Thin, with an injured paw. The same puppy he had kicked weeks earlier. It was him, the dog that survived. Terrified, Thomas tried to scare it off with a weak grunt. "Get lost, damn mutt." But the animal didn't move. Instead, it stepped closer, sniffing at the shattered passenger window. It looked directly at Thomas. Then it began to bark, loudly, again and again. For more than an hour, the dog stayed there, barking, pacing the road, returning, barking more, until finally, a delivery truck passing by slowed down, disturbed by the relentless noise in the middle of the road. As the driver lit up the roadside with his headlights, he spotted the wrecked vehicle and the motionless body inside. Thomas Griggs was rushed to Mercy Hospital downtown, where he underwent 2 emergency surgeries. He spent 3 days in a medically induced coma. When he woke up, he was intubated, his arm in a cast, his leg held together by metal pins. But it wasn't the hospital that surprised him. It was the nurse who walked in with a strained smile and said, "You're lucky, Mr. Griggs. If it weren't for that dog, you'd be dead on that road." He didn't respond, just turned his face away, trying to ignore her. "They said the dog stayed by your side until the paramedics arrived. Didn't leave for a second. We thought it was sweet. He's at a temporary shelter if you'd like to see him." Thomas closed his eyes, tried to fake sleep, but tears slid down his face, maybe from the physical pain, maybe from something he couldn't quite name. The image of the soaked dog standing in the road etched itself into his mind. He tried to push it away, tried to tell himself it was just animal instinct, dumb luck, coincidence. But something in him had cracked, or maybe been mended. The days in the hospital were long. Thomas Griggs, confined to a bed and his own silence, avoided eye contact with doctors and nurses. Whenever someone mentioned the dog who saved him, he turned his face away, irritated. Still, he listened to everything. The dog had been named Lucky at the shelter for obvious reasons. When Thomas was discharged for partial recovery, he was sent home under medical supervision and physical therapy. He couldn't drive, could barely stand on his own. The town that once hated him now seemed to harbor something else, pity mixed with contempt. His front gate was covered in posters and graffiti. One read, "You were saved by what you hated most. Now try being human." 2 weeks after returning home, Thomas opened his door one morning and saw a small box with dog food, a collar, and a note. "He's still waiting for you." It was from activist Melissa Carver, the same woman who had led protests against him. That infuriated him. But for the first time, he didn't throw the box away. He just left it in the corner of the room. That night, Thomas had a nightmare. He was trapped in the car again, bleeding, screaming, and in the distance howls. But in the dream, no one came. No dog. No help. Just darkness. He woke up drenched in sweat. The next morning, he called the Golden Heart Shelter, where Lucky was being housed. "I just want to see if he's still alive," he muttered. "He is, and it seems like he misses you," the woman replied. "Whenever someone with your scent comes around, he runs to the gate." At the shelter, Thomas entered quietly, on crutches. When Lucky saw him, he didn't bark, didn't growl. He simply wagged his tail and limped toward him, his back legs still healing. They stood face to face. The silence was heavier than any words. Ashamed, Thomas reached out his hand. "I'm sorry, kid." Lucky licked it. The moment was quietly captured by a shelter volunteer who posted the photo online with the caption, "The dog who forgave his abuser and maybe changed a heart." The image went viral. Reactions were split. Some commented, "People like him don't deserve forgiveness. Cheap PR stunt. A monster doesn't become an angel overnight." But others wrote, "Maybe this is a beginning. Not to erase the past, but to build a better future." Thomas didn't become a hero overnight. He didn't even try. He returned to the shelter every day, at first in secret, then openly. He started helping clean kennels, fed the older dogs, and perhaps most surprising of all, offered to pay for the surgeries of 2 injured strays using his personal savings. Melissa, the activist, wasn't sure if she trusted him, so she kept a close eye. What she saw left her unsettled. Thomas wasn't trying to prove anything. He didn't give interviews, didn't film videos. He just helped. One night, she saw him sitting beside Lucky, outside the shelter, in silence. The dog lay there, his head resting in Thomas's lap. Melissa approached. "Do you have any idea how hard it is to believe this isn't all an act?" Thomas replied without looking at her. "I have no idea, but I don't care if no one believes it. I know what he did for me." Silence. She left a bag of blankets and walked away. Even though he tried to stay anonymous, the story reached the media. A reporter from Kern 17 News showed up with a crew, asking for an exclusive interview. Thomas refused, but was filmed from a distance. The segment aired with the headline, "From Hate to Gratitude, Former Animal Abuser Changes Life After Being Saved by a Dog." The next morning, the shelter received boycott threats. Many animal rights advocates were outraged by the glorification of Thomas. Haters vandalized his house. Lucky was nearly poisoned by a piece of meat left at the door. The town was divided. Redemption or retribution. 2 months after the accident, Thomas Griggs' story had already crossed the borders of Bakersfield. It was the subject of national newspaper features, podcasts about restorative justice, and even forums on animal ethics. Half the people said he deserved a second chance. The other half called him a manipulator, a sociopath, or worse. But Thomas didn't want fame. He wanted silence. Golden Hearts Refuge, the same shelter that took in Lucky, hosted an annual event called Adoption and Animal Awareness Day, with booths, activities, guest speakers, and pet adoptions. This year, the event would be broadcast live by a local news station. To everyone's surprise, Melissa Carver, the activist who once led protests against Thomas, invited him to speak at the event's closing. "It's your chance to say whatever you want. To the city, to yourself, and to Lucky." "If I'm gonna be stoned, I'd rather be standing when it happens," he replied. On the day of the event, the crowd was a mix of curiosity and tension. Thomas walked up to the stage with a cane limping. Lucky, now stronger, walked beside him wearing a bandana that read, "I forgive."
"Do you?" Silence.
He grabbed the microphone with trembling hands. "My name is Thomas Griggs. I was, known as a monster. And I'm not here to defend myself or ask for applause. I'm here to confess. For years, I hated everything that breathed without paying rent. Animals,
People.
the world. I hurt dogs, drove off cats, threw rocks, poison rage. And none of it ever erased the pain inside me. I was a broken man, but that's no excuse. One day, I thought I was going to die alone on a roadside. And the animal I once kicked, he's the one who saved me. That moment, it tore something open inside me. And for the first time, I felt shame. I felt the urge to be better. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. Maybe I don't. But deserving was never the point. I just want to spend every day I have left trying to repay what I destroyed." Silence. Then applause. Some polite, some thunderous, some none at all. But there was applause. After the event, Thomas officially offered to volunteer at the shelter for the rest of his life, working with the hardest cases, traumatized, aggressive animals rescued from abuse. He said he knew how to deal with monsters because he used to be one. He also sold part of his property and donated the money to create a rehabilitation wing at Golden Hearts Refuge named Wings and Paws, with Lucky's name on the main plaque. Lucky, in turn, became the face of the Forgiveness Saves Two campaign, now used in public schools and juvenile rehabilitation centers. Thomas was never fully forgiven by everyone, and he knew it. Some people still turned their backs when they saw him. Others left hate notes in his mailbox. But every morning, he woke up at 6 a.m., placed his cane beside the couch, poured kibble into Lucky's bowl, and said, "One more day to get it right." And Lucky wagged his tail, as if to say, "You already are."